We're going to start off with the major storm that is taking shape in the eastern part of the United States, and also in tandem with that, we're going to be talking about the tropical depression that may become Tropical Storm Philippe later today or this evening. That's coming out of the northwestern Caribbean, and we've got tropical storm watches up for southeastern Florida now in the Upper Keys because of the proximity of the system and the fact that it's probably going to become a tropical storm, but I don't expect it to strengthen that much. It'll strengthen some, but not that much. Now, I was going to start off here with the issue of winds. This is a very tough part of the forecast because you've got the models focusing on multiple low centers. So where those low centers are positioned is really going to determine who gets into the tight gradient and who doesn't. Now, this is for this afternoon. I'm sorry, this is for early Sunday morning, 2 a.m., where we've got the GFS actually having a fairly wrapped up low, which represents the depression up in the northwestern Bahamas. And now you start to see, in response to the deep trough in the east on Sunday morning, you'll notice, these isobars they're all stretched out, and there's lower pressures. Pressures probably going to be falling rapidly across the Carolinas. And there you have another surface low center sitting just to the east of Hatteras by tomorrow afternoon. The wind field begins to expand out over the coastal waters. Tomorrow evening, we have a wrapped up, actually fairly deep surface low. Looks like that, even though it doesn't print an L, I'm just counting off the isobars. That's probably on the order of a 976 millibar load southeast of Atlantic City. And notice the wind field at that point. The strongest winds are really east and north of the center. There isn't a lot of wind going on west and south. Now, whichever model gets it right with regards to where the actual low center is going to determine where this wind field sets up. So if by chance the European is more correct with that low center west of the GFS position, that would bring those strong winds onshore to the New Jersey coast. Based on this model, I would have to forecast that for the New Jersey coast, certainly for central and northern New Jersey, and for sure for Long Island and for southern and southeastern New England, you'll be getting into some of the strong gales. The red areas are 40 knots or higher. The purples are 50 knots or higher. I think these are sustained winds, so I think there could be gusts certainly at well in excess of 50 knots out of this in some places where, again, north and east of the actual track of the low. If you are west and north of the low track, rain is going to be your bigger issue rather than the wind. Now, here we are at 1 a.m., and you can see that the low center is well up now into upstate New York, just not too far west of Albany, moving north-northwestward. This low that is southeast of Long Island and Nantucket, that is the representation of what the model sees as the tropical depression / tropical storm Philippe, assuming that it becomes one. I tend to think at this point that rather than be a separate entity, it'll probably already be absorbed, and that might also impact how this all plays out. It's very interesting and very unusual to see a setup like this. We've got this deep non-tropical storm which would have developed anyway, and now you've got this tropical element that's into the part of the equation. Whether it changes anything or not remains to be seen. Again, if it winds up getting absorbed faster, it'll probably juice this thing up a bit more, especially from the standpoint of some rain. And then by Monday morning, the low center is up into upstate New York. This is where late Sunday and early Monday morning till about midday, this is where everybody gets into the strong winds. There will be strong winds from the northwest and west at about 20 to 30 knots with gusts up to 40 knots or higher over a large portion of the northeast, probably from, say, from Maryland and the Delmarva Peninsula, north and east of there. We'll probably see some strong gusty winds into Monday afternoon, and then it pulls out. Now, from the standpoint of rain, let's take a look at what the models do with rainfall. And they're fairly generous I could use the total rainfall rather than the 24 hours. This is the only event that we have, so we can get a fair picture of this. But notice big rains for parts of northeastern Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey, certainly the northern half, down along the coast over Long Island, New York City, into the Hudson Valley and western Connecticut. The white areas are all 2 inches or more. You can see the scale here on the side. You get into the darker purples and you're talking 4 to 5 inches. It's quite possible that this could be underdone. In instances like this, you oftentimes have models having a difficult time picking out the exact upside. I just want to be careful because of the fact that it's been tough here to get widespread rainfalls of size in the last, not only just the last number of weeks, it's been non-existent the last number of weeks, but really in this whole dry pattern that we've had for the last year or so, it's been very difficult to do better in terms of rainfall than what the models are showing. So I think it's probably safe to say that, it's going to be every bit of a couple of inches of rain for most places. West and north of the low track, I would go to the upside of that. If I'm east of the low track, I might want to go a little bit lower. But it's a pretty substantial area of rain that's being indicated by the GFS. And I'll put the NAM model up also because the NAM was rather aggressive, has a bit more of an extensive area of 2-inch plus rains. You see these pockets where some places get a little bit less. I'm not sure if that's because of the geography in these areas, if the model is picking up on some mountains or something. I don't know. But notice that throughout much of central PA, on up into much of north central New York State, we've got some 2, 3, 4-inch amounts or more. Long Island does well, a little bit less in New Jersey, but it would be fair to say that everybody gets at least 2 inches out of this. This is the other thing with the NAM, by the way. When we look at the wind on the NAM at the peak, the NAM, for some reason, I think it's incorrect about this. It's about 3 to 6 hours slower than the other models, but the NAM does bring that 40 to 50 knot sustained winds to eastern Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and much of southeastern Massachusetts. Notice again the wind's not that much as the storm moves by on its first pass. The wind's not that strong until the low gets up into upstate New York, and then as we get into Monday morning, you start to see very strong gusty winds across most of the areas inland of the coastline. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be every bit of 20 to 35 with some gusts into the 40s, maybe even up to 50 miles an hour during Monday morning on the backside of this strong storm. And then it pulls away to the northeast. Now, let me jump to the satellite view. We're going to first look at the tropical depression here as it is moving northeastward at 22 miles an hour. So it's already beginning to accelerate into the deep trough into the eastern part of the United States. There's a well-defined core that's of convection that has developed this morning. So that's why they were able to designate this as a tropical depression and not that potential tropical cyclones indicator. And while wind shear is low for the next 24 hours or so, relatively low, it's got that opportunity to strengthen into a tropical storm. And also, I think it's going to get some juice from this deep upper trough. Now, look at how deep and how much mileage this trough covers. I mean, it goes all the way from James Bay down into the central Gulf of Mexico. And, it's setting up like this. And the southern part of this trough is the part that's getting strong. This arm is going to be lifting up and around. So this is why the tropical system is now moving north and northeast and accelerating because that jet stream aloft that's going to be carrying this along is strengthening and beginning in the process of lifting up and around. So it's just kind of like a giant arm that just picks it up and then brings it up the East Coast. You would, again, regardless of whether there's a tropical system there or not, if this were not here, you still would have low pressure developing off the southeast coast of the United States and intensifying as it moves northward or even northwestward up the coast. That was going to happen regardless of whether there was tropical involvement in here or not. But interesting to see all these players going on with the deep trough, the new surface storm that's going to develop with that.